We work hard so you can get hard. That's a lot.
I'm sure that was consensual.
It was fucking Carl!
We are going to move on to our next topic, guys. We are talking about the best role players in our league. And, you know, that's kind of something that's hard to define sometimes, right? What is a role player? Because sometimes, you know, it can be a starter. A role player can be a starter. It could be someone coming off the bench. It could be anybody. It's obviously not a star, but it's a guy who fills a specific part of the team and does it exceptionally well. So I want to hear your top five and give me a brief reason for why you rank them there.
Yeah, I'm gonna start at 5 just because last time we started at 1, but that was a little more obvious. 5. I'll start at 5. I didn't include any 6 men or any young star. I was looking at some lists, looking at a bunch of stuff from what they thought during my research, and Desmond Bane's not a role player. He's a legit scoring option. So is Jordan Clarkson. He's not a role player. He's a 6th man. He's the 6th man of that team. He's a 6th man of the year candidate. Granted, that's a role. I didn't include them in role player. I wouldn't call them a role player. They're scoring options. So my fifth best role player in the league, I have PJ Tucker. Primary defender for the Bucks. I mean, he shoots close to 40%, but he's not a shooter. He raises the intensity, helps out the culture of the Heat. Obviously, he was a huge part on why the Bucks won. He can hit from 3, like I said, almost 40%, but he's there as to be a primary defender, defense. I think he was the 5th best role player this year. Well, who's your 5th? We can bounce back and forth. Who's your 5th?
My 5th, I actually had a 6 man here. I put Tyler Hero, so we can debate a little bit about that, but I thought he filled his role exceptionally well this year in being their scorer and being able to spark the plug for them whenever needed. And I don't really see him becoming a starter anytime soon because his defense isn't good enough. So I don't know how you couldn't think he's a role player because, you know, he provides something that team isn't getting from anyone else. And that's, you know, aggressive scoring, that is swagger, that is, you know, Tyler Hero. So,
I mean,
that's my guy.
There's no doubt, like, the talent, what he brings to the team is good. I don't classify him as a role player because, honestly, he's probably the 2nd scoring option on that team. He might be the 6th man, but he still plays heavy minutes. He's that 2nd scoring option. I just don't like, and especially 6 men, because we'll eventually have a list of our top 5 6 men in the league too. And I just don't see, like, a role player is just some guy who's outside of that, you know, even outside of the defensive lead of a team. And that's kind of what I lean into. He has too big of a role. I don't know. Everyone's a role player in the NBA. Everyone that's why it's so like
it's hard to argue.
Yeah, it's so relative. Every NBA player, but I just kind of picked smaller guys with smaller roles. So that's why he's Tyler Hero's not on my list. I get it.
Fair enough.
But he was too big of a scoring option to put in here.
No, I got you. I mean, he's still under 20 points per game, so I consider it not on that star trajectory yet, and I don't think
all-stars don't need to make 20 points. Chris Middleton averages like 18 points a game, and he's an all-star. He's also the 2nd scoring option on that team.
He does a lot of other things too.
But who's your 4th?
And he's
yeah.
My 4th, I put Bobby Portis. I think he's been an exceptional defender for the Bucks, filling in with what they lost for PJ Tucker as best he can, and really gets the energy going for that team as well. You know, he's been a fun player to watch, and excited to see what type of contract he can haul in.
Oh yeah. Yeah, assuming he declines his player option. Yeah, I think he's a player option. So Bobby Portis is great. He would probably be my 6th if I made he fell on my list. He would be. I would have to debate him when we make our 6th man in the league. But yeah, he's great. He's wonderful. His perimeter defense kind of limited some of his time in the playoffs, but he still shoots great. He plays so well off of Giannis, and he's a piece they have to hold on, do everything they can to hold on to. Who I had at 4 was Jay Crowder. I mean, he's always going to be. Yeah, he's always going to be on my role player list. I actually have 2 Phoenix Suns. Spoiler alert. So
okay,
but he's a prototypical 3-and-D. He's like like when you think about it. If you look at his numbers, they don't lean to what you think he should, but you got to watch him on court. I mean, he can take over a game with how with his 3-point shot, but also he's a dog. He's great for culture. He has such this positive aggression in the locker room. He's a great vet to have. Every young guy loves having him on the team. I think he just does a lot, and his role is perfect for this Suns team. And I know Chris Paul was super excited to play with him when he came to the Suns.
Yeah, Jay Crowder's been a great 3-point shooter, a solid defender for years, and somebody who players love to be with. So, it's no surprise that he's been on contenders for the last few years because he's a glue guy in a lot of ways and really helps bring teams together.
No, definitely. You can see the effect he had on Marcus Smart even today. Granted, Marcus Smart is Marcus Smart. That's who he is. But Jay Crowder really molded a lot of his culture and what Marcus Smart does today because Jay Crowder was the vet for Marcus Smart when he first started off back in the Isaiah Thomas days.
Crazy to think about.
Oh, yeah.
My next guy, I have Will Barton. A guy who's been a 15-point per game scorer for years and can be counted upon to really get things going when your team is in a slump. And for the Nuggets, he's been a welcome player for years because they've had injuries around the team. He's been able to step up. When he was on Portland, it was a similar deal. He's just always that guy that you can count upon to figure it out and get your team out of the slump. And really think he's been valuable for that reason, and I think he'll continue to be. So really exciting player to watch for me.
Yeah, Will Barton, I really like Will Barton. He's been a relief for them. I know I said in our video that I wanted to trade him, but that doesn't take anything away from him being a really nice player, a nice vet for that team. They, like you said, they have had injuries, and he had to step up and become a scoring option, and he was. And he is a role player because he wasn't intended to be that scoring option, but that's what he does. He can do. He's a great all-around wing to have. Deserve it. So he's not on my list, but he's definitely top 10 role players in this league.
Yeah, for sure. I love Will Barton. He's made a spot in this league for a long time for a good reason. And
for sure.
I don't think the Nuggets should get rid of him anytime soon unless they can find somebody who can replace what he does,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. My 3 is Dorian Finney-Smith, and he actually didn't appear on anybody's role player list, and it was pretty crazy because he's the primary defender for that Mavs team. He fits a lot of it. He's a small ball power forward or small forward when they need it. 39% from 3. He's everything that you need for a guy next to Luka, and I think it's kind of crazy that nobody talks about him enough. His defense was great. The Mavs made it to the Western Conference Finals as him as a starter. That should only show the impact of what he has on that team.
No doubt. He really broke out this year. I think still not a lot of people really know who Dorian Finney-Smith is. I think the playoffs helped them get a better idea, but I think he's going to have to continue to show out for people to figure out who he is.
Definitely. No. Super well-developed player. I love Dorian.
Yeah, no doubt. He's really stepped up, and he had some big games that helped take the weight off Luka's shoulders a bit this year.
Yeah.
My next guy, I have PJ Tucker. I know you mentioned him earlier as your 5th. Maybe not the same player he used to be, but just put in a great season this last year after I didn't expect him to have a whole lot left in the tank. He's still got a little bit of scoring ability there, able to drive to the rim. And hell, man, that Heat culture, help him build that. Fantastic defender as always. And, it's a shame that they weren't able to make it further in these playoffs because we would have really been able to see what he was capable of.
Oh, yeah. Tyler Herro struggled a bit, and his injury really kind of limited why they fell out of the conference finals. But no, yeah, PJ Tucker, like I said, this is one of his best 3-point shooting seasons of his career that he's ever had, so that's something to say. Even though he's slowing down in some aspects, he's still staying up there. He's like 37, so he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, my man's is old, but he's figuring it out.
Another guy I have as my second is Al Horford. We did a thing about him. Sure. He is a huge role player. He's not a scoring option, but he's the best all-around role player on my list. He does playmaking. He's one of the smartest NBA players out there. 3, you got D, you get inside D, you get it all. And he's a perfect player, vet for all the young players. Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum. He's a great fit, and he's showing that he's the best role player in the playoffs right now.
There you go, man. I've got my number 1 is a little bit more controversial, and maybe he hasn't had as great of a playoffs as he should, but Draymond Green is still the best role player in the NBA because he can fill it up on every angle. His passing ability for his position is fantastic. Obviously, everybody knows his antics getting into people's heads. It goes too far sometimes with his flopping and whatever. But you can't deny that this man is one of the best, role players in the league, being able to glue that Warriors team together, get the most out of his teammates, and just being a great guy to be around. Like, you hear nothing but great things from Steph and Clay, from wanting to play with Dre. And, if that wasn't the case, I don't think he'd have nearly the same success. Like, if he wasn't on the Warriors, who would Draymond Green be?
No, that's exactly. I'm not even mad. Like, the reason he's not in mine is because his offense has fallen off a cliff. And that's why he's not in my top 5. But I love the pick. I mean, it's fully justified. I get it. Like we said, this is a very relative list. I get why he'd be your number 1. I'm sure he's many people's number 1s. He has a role and he does it perfection. He's in the finals because without him, I don't know if they'd be where they are because of how good he is in his role. And it's just, and it's such a rare archetype to find a power forward like that who back in the time in his prime could space the floor, but now defensive and playmaking, you don't really get that. And he's a small ball center. You can't get that from any other player in the league. I'm confident. And what he does is, and like I said, he breeds this good culture for them. He's very much Pat Bev, Marcus Smart type player, or they're more like him rather. But that's awesome. My number 1.
And before you say that, today I read that Draymond, Clay, and Steph are now the most winningest trio in playoff history.
Really?
They've won more playoff games than any other trio. So they have surpassed Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and Tim Duncan.
That's a fucking
huge accomplishment to each of them. They've been a huge reason. I mean, obviously, they are the reason this dynasty is a thing. And you really just got to tip your cap to them. I mean, all drafted by the Warriors.
Yeah, some like SportsCenter, ESPN milestones are like, man, they're like, LeBron just passed the only time somebody has worn Nike shoes with it on the date of in the month of March, and he's 34 years old, but also while he left his contacts at home and used someone else's, like, but that's a milestone. That's a legit milestone. Manu, Tony Parker, that's insane. Tim Duncan, one of the top 10 greatest of all time. That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow. No, I mean, you gotta just appreciate it. Sure, they had some help along the way,
of course,
by bringing in another superstar, but grown guys who figured it out, and they've won championships on their own together, and they look like they're gonna win another this year. Who knows what's beyond that? I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah, insane. But my first guy is Mikal Bridges. Suns. He was my defensive player of the year. I mean, he's the ultimate 3-and-D type player you can get. He's efficient. He's that's it. That's all I can get. He was the best perimeter defender this league for me, and he hit his 3-point shots efficiently. So that's why he's my number 1 role player in the league.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's a great player. I guess in my mind, I didn't think of him as a role player, but again, that's the definition of trying to figure out what a role player is. It's hard. Everybody talks about it differently. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments who you think the best role player in the league is, what the hell a role player is. Let us know. We're trying to get educated here. But yeah, Mikal Bridges, love him. Obviously, the Sixers are still regretting trading him away when they had his mom employed for them. I mean, just shit you cannot make up. Mikal Bridges, great player.
That's funny. Yep. But
that's a wrap for us, guys. Subscribe if you haven't already. We love talking about basketball, and you love listening to us. So it's a match made in heaven, I think.